Hello friends, the name Rockefellers is known all over the world. This family is famous for its untold wealth. They always carefully hid the size of their fortune. No one has been able to even approximate the amount of assets of these oil tycoons. What else did the Rockefellers become famous for? But before we start, subscribe to our channel. Like and launch the video on social networks. Next, we will tell the story of the Rockefellers, conspiracy theories and interesting biographical facts. Point 1. A major migration of Germans, the New World, began back in 1710. The main reasons for the resettlement were the political and religious repressions that the Germans experienced in Europe. Most of them settled along the Mujak River, where they established a settlement of German Puritans. It is noteworthy that the Germans living on the frontier maintained peaceful relations with the Indians. One of them, the famous Conrad Weiser, a distant relative of the Rockefellers, practically grew up with the Indian tribe. He spoke several Indian dialects and knew their mentality. So good that the authorities hired him several times to negotiate with the leaders of various tribes. In other words, representatives of the German community, already in the early period of settlement in the British colonies of the New World, demonstrated their entrepreneurial and managerial talents. Because of this extraordinary activity, tension arose in their relations with other settlers and authorities. As a result, intense conflicts forced a large number of Germans from the Mujak River Valley into southern Pennsylvania. This state subsequently became the main center of German immigration. It is important to note that the presence of the Germans greatly contributed to the development of the foundations of the future American democratic system. Being the largest group of non-English-speaking settlers, the Germans refused to accept the authority of the Anglican Church. To avoid clashes, ethnic and religious groups developed a culture of restraint and tolerance. The father of America's first billionaire, John Rockefeller, was William Rockefeller, and many rumors circulated around his person. He was accused of trading in suspicious medicines, horse theft, fraud and other crimes. For more than 100 years, they gained fame as the richest family in the whole world. They were credited with participating in matters that decided the fate of the world. There have always been a lot of secrets and gossip around them, because everyone is interested in how it was possible to accumulate such a fortune and maintain leadership for so many decades. Eliza Davidson married William Rockefeller, thinking he was deaf and dumb, but William was just playing out another scam. It soon became clear that he could speak and did it very well. He even brought home his mistress Nancy, and she also became the mother of his children. He had 6 children with delays. Among the 6 children of Eliza and William Rockefeller Sr., 2 achieved success. John and William Rockefeller Jr. Already at the age of 16, John distinguished himself, studied accounting and got a job as an assistant accountant. After 4 years of hard work, he and his partner Morris Clark opened a company selling meat, hay, and grain. A year later, he had accumulated $450,000 in capital. They were helped by the Civil War and the huge demand for food. Many historians accuse Rockefeller of atoning for numerous sins by the end of his life through philanthropy. However, Jones was involved in church life earlier in his youth and regularly gave alms with every salary. In general, Rockefeller's charitable activities always ran parallel to his business life. Thanks to his entrepreneurial flair, he became one of the most successful businessmen in the country. However, already at that time, the Rockefeller factor became largely negative for American Germans, when President Benjamin Harrison announced a hunt for monopolists. Leading federal and regional newspapers wrote that the Rockefellers, with their greed, ruined the lives of many ordinary Americans. In 1864, they began working with oil. Soon, Rockefeller bought out his parts from his partner and focused entirely on oil. In 1870, the famous Standard Cost Company was founded, which provided the family with a comfortable 100 years. John began an aggressive takeover policy and within 2 years he controlled all the oil refineries. He soon practically monopolized Standard Oil, which helped him accumulate a huge fortune. However, the U.S. Congress opposed the monopoly. In addition, the character acted quite harshly. He gave companies the choice of merging with a standard company or going bankrupt. John tried to circumvent the law of monopolies, but in 1911 he still had to divide his creation into 34 oil production units. Leading companies, now experts, call his methods of the Wild West and believe that it was thanks to him that America became a world economic power. Passion subsided after the anti-monopoly law was passed, ending the sole rule of this family in the oil business. In addition, John ordered that the family foundation provide assistance not only to German communities, but also to all those in need in order to secure its status as an American family that cares about a wide range of problems of its country. Despite all these efforts, Anglo-Saxon America treated the rich clan with great distrust and contempt and envy. For most Americans, the Rockefellers remained Germans. No matter what they did during the two world wars, the foundations of this family provided financial assistance for the formation and supply of the army. In addition, significant funds were allocated to German-language newspapers to promote the interests of the United States and its union. The German community, many of whom sympathized with Germany and supported the policies of its authorities. It is difficult to say whether it would have been possible to promote these German brands without the help of the Rockefellers. On the one hand, their efforts helped change the majority's perception of German Americans. This greatly helped them get rid of the reputation of German bandits. With the other Rockefeller, it was not possible to radically get rid of the label of financial criminals. Even the noble gesture of John Rockefeller Jr., who allocated $8.5 million to purchase land in New York for the construction of the UN headquarters, did not change the situation. The achievements of John Rockefeller forced the media to write about him as the #1 speculator in the American oil market. Since then, this label has also been firmly attached to his family. However, one success in this area belongs to Colonel Edwin Drake. His discoveries on renewable oil production created a real sensation among entrepreneurs. In 1859, it was Drake who began the practice of buying land from farmers where oil was found. Moreover, the colonel did not shy away from using physical force and administrative resources against those who did not agree to make a deal. He bought these companies for only $4.37. Drake and his companions waged a real hunt for oil reserves to create kerosene, which was then the Tri-Road was sold to the U.S. government. Rockefeller at that time was busy in the brokerage business in Cleveland, Ohio, and did not have any experience or authority to work in the oil sector. Even the oil rush did not catch him at first, as reserves were depleted, and frequent fires caused serious damage and brought panic to industrial business. Moreover, during the transportation of oil, almost as much was lost as was produced. For these reasons, Rockefeller did not seek to enter this sector. He entered the oil business only in 1865 after much persuasion by the chemist Samuel, who promised his friend John a guaranteed profit. Andrew's innovative approaches and Rockefeller's managerial talent revolutionized the American oil market. Already in 1870, John Rockefeller became a multimillionaire. However, it is important to emphasize that this success would not have been possible if John Rockefeller had not owned competitive railroad and water transport companies, which he turned into a competitive advantage. Having realized that it was logistics that would determine the degree of success of the oil business. The story of the rapid success of Rockefeller could have been interrupted when the scientist Edison invented the incandescent lamp. Electric lighting has become a real threat to the oil refining business, because the demand for kerosene was falling. Moreover, electricity has been found to be less dangerous than using kerosene lamps. It is not surprising that John Rockefeller saw the electrification of America as the beginning of the collapse of all the results of his work. Already at that time, he had great funds and political influence to eliminate these threats. However, numerous financial injections into lobbyists and other measures did not help him defeat the Edison light bulb. Miraculously, Rockefeller's position was saved by another innovation, the automobile. The decision to embrace a new concept of personal transport powered by an internal combustion engine played a decisive role in its success. Yes, how could gasoline be made from oil? Thus, cars exploded the market and created a huge demand for fuel, due to which the Rockefeller oil empire began to flourish by 1917. His fortune was estimated at approximately $150 billion. In the modern equivalent, most people know the Rockefellers as oil tycoons and rich men. However, John made enormous contributions to the development of the world. Despite criticism of his methods, Rockefeller was not as cruel a man as he is described. He spent millions on charity, sponsored the creation of the University of Chicago, and founded the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. Also in 1902, he created the Board of General Education to provide higher education to people regardless of gender, race, or religion. He followed this with the founding of the Rockefeller Foundation, which to this day helps thousands of organizations around the world. He contributed to the arts, medicine, scientific progress, social research, and much more. Rockefeller's biographers say that from childhood he was raised to believe that money should benefit the whole world. At the same time, he lived quite modestly, raising his children in a regime similar to a market economy. The children were rewarded for housework and academic success, and his wife kept the books. John believed that without his wife's advice he would never have been able to achieve such success. John Rockefeller Jr. grew up worthy of his name and even increased his family's fortune. Its success occurred during the period of 2 world wars. His 5 sons and daughter also took a huge part in strengthening the fortune and reputation of the dynasty, continuing their work in the fields of philanthropy, politics, and business. It is usually said that wealth lasts only 3 generations. Surprisingly, the Rockefeller family has managed to maintain its primacy for 7 generations. Now there are about 250 family members in the world who are descendants of John and Lori Rockefeller. Their fortune is estimated at about $11 billion in total. However, these are their personal assets. There is also Rockefeller Financial Services, which owns $34 billion. It is even more incredible that for more than 100 years the Rockefeller family name has not been tarnished by any scandals, not a single lawsuit over inheritance, no public scandals, no fraternal feuds. David Rockefeller was the last grandson of the founder of the dynasty. 1 in the history of mankind, dollar billionaire John Rockefeller. He was born in New York in 1915 and was raised according to the behests of his great-grandfather. From childhood, Rockefeller's descendants were taught to earn money and skillfully handle it in order to avoid the temptation of an irresponsible attitude towards a colossal inheritance. David Rockefeller received an excellent education. He graduated from the Lincoln Private School and entered Harvard University. He graduated in 1936 with moderate success and studied for another year at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and in 1940 he defended his doctorate in economics at the University of Chicago. But the main thing that Rockefeller took from his training for his future career was the ability to establish personal contacts. In the same year he began working in the public service. First as secretary to the mayor of New York, Führer Legumzia, then in the Department of Defense Health and Welfare. Although the Rockefellers were a member of a powerful family, and his war did not bypass him. In 1942, he entered military service as a private. By 1945 he had risen to the rank of captain. During the war he was sent to Algeria to build a network of informants for military intelligence. After the war, he accepted his uncle's offer and joined Chase Bank in 1946 as an assistant manager in one of the lowest positions. Thanks to his talent as a diplomat, Rockefeller, for example, persuaded the management of banks to accept livestock as collateral. During the Castro Revolution in Cuba, when all American property was confiscated, Rockefeller not only managed to avoid possible losses for the bank, but also more than compensated for them. In addition, he merged Chase Manhattan Bank and became its president in January 1961. Over the years, Rockefeller was able to turn Chase Manhattan Bank into a global international organization, but in 1981 he left his post due to reaching the age limit allowed by the bank's charter for this position. During his life, David Rockefeller met more than 200 heads of state and government and flown more than 5 million miles by plane. He met with Nikita Khrushchev, Alexei Kosygin, Fidel Castro, Deng Xiaoping, Mikhail Gorbachev and others. Rockefeller allocated $75 million to the latter already in 1992. It is difficult to overestimate the organization of a global fund and presidential library according to the American model and its influence on world politics. In 1954 he headed the Council on Foreign Relations. In 1973 he founded the Tripartite Commission, an influential private international organization whose purpose was to discuss and find solutions to world problems. He is considered a member of the world government, largely due to his membership of the Bilderberg Club. He took part in all meetings. The club, since 1954, has been a member of the governing committee, which determines the list of persons invited to the meeting. It includes national leaders, who then often run for election, as happened with Bill Clinton, who, while still the governor of Arkansas, was invited to a club meeting in 1991. Journalists have repeatedly noted that the Bilderberg meetings are more influential than the G7 meeting. Rockefeller himself denied his participation in the secret world government, and he wrote about this in his memoirs. However, he is known not only as a globalist and neoconservative, but also as a major philanthropist. According to the New York Times, in 2006, the total amount of donations made by David Rockefeller was estimated at $900 million. If wealthy people live a happy life on their own, they should come to the idea that they need to give part of their time and money to help other people, Rockefeller said. In 2008, he donated $100 million to Harvard University. This became one of the largest private donations in Harvard history. But at the same time, David Rockefeller was a proponent of birth limitation and control on a global scale. Although he himself had 6 children and 10 grandchildren, he was concerned about the growing consumption of water and energy, and air pollution due to population growth. In 2008, he called for finding satisfactory ways to stabilize the world's population. But David Rockefeller himself dreamed of living a long life. He underwent many heart transplants, one of which occurred in 1976, when Rockefeller was 61 years old. He was in a car accident, which triggered a heart attack. A week after the transplant, Rockefeller went for a morning jog. Rockefeller has been criticized more than once for this. Since the public doubted that the billionaire received new hearts on a first-come, first-served basis for transplantation, thereby possibly deprived someone of the chance to survive, given the shortage of donor organs, even repeat transplantation is a rare occurrence. However, doctors rejected all accusations of Rockefeller's dishonesty. However, few people know that David Rockefeller collected not only hearts, but Zhukov always had a jar with him in case he suddenly came across a rare or new species in his many trips. He owned one of the largest collections of beetles in the world, and his main pride was the rare species of scarab found high in the mountains of Mexico, which was named in his honor by Rockefeller's Diplo taxi driver. According to Rockefeller, during his entire life he discovered 4 or 5 new species of beetles. For some, the name Rockefeller is synonymous with success in business and the realization of the American dream. For others, greed, lawlessness, and the desire for unlimited power. The Rockefellers have always been the center of attention of the general public, the media, and the American authorities. Thus, President Theodore Roosevelt called the Rockefellers criminals, and Secretary of State William Bryan demanded that the heads of the family be imprisoned from representatives of this clan. For decades, the most influential prosecutors and investigators in 40 states were actively digging. It is noteworthy that Leo Tolstoy called the Rockefellers the criminals of the century, arguing that honest people should not work for them. Most often, scientists, trying to explain such a negative attitude towards the Rockefellers, analyze the activities of specific representatives of the clan, leaving without due attention such important factors as the peculiarities of the formation and the development of capitalism in America, and this on the political relationships between communities in different historical periods. If you liked our video, but have not yet subscribed to us, then subscribe right now and launch the video on social networks. There will be a lot of interesting things in the next issues. See you soon.